The Philippines has recently shown its serious commitment to strengthening its defense posture. In addition to investing in the purchase of more fighter jets and frigates, it is also investing in coastal-based missile systems, which usually come to mind are the BrahMos missile system and the newly introduced US-based medium-range capability systems such as the Typhoon. The Philippines is looking to purchase medium-range missile launchers from the US, a plan that is likely to trigger more Chinese protests over Manila's efforts to bolster its defenses. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro has confirmed during an interview with the Financial Times that the Philippines intends to acquire the medium-range capability systems. This is believed to mean the intention to acquire the US-made Typhoon mid-range capability missile system that was initially deployed by the US Army in the Philippines in April 2024, and continues to be in the Philippines as a deterrent against foreign aggressors. "We do intend to acquire such a capability," Teodoro said. "We will not sacrifice our right to acquire such a capability in the future in our territory." However, Max Defense Philippines interpreted Secretary Teodoro's statement slightly differently. "We believe that the Philippines is not specifically eyeing the Typhoon MRC missile system, but could also be looking at other countries that could potentially supply similar capabilities." While this may be an interesting proposition, one thing to consider is that exporting this type of weaponry is subject to specific restrictions such as the Missile Technology Control Regime or MTCR, which prevents such capabilities from being sold to other countries. The Typhoon MRC missile system uses the Raytheon RIM-174 Standard Long-Range Active Missile, ACA SM-6, which has a range of about 400 kilometers, and the Raytheon Tomahawk Land Attack Cruise Missile, which has a range of about 1,600 kilometers. The April deployment of the launcher, also known as Typhoon, was the first by the US of an intermediate-range missile system since the collapse of the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 2019. The treaty prohibits the US and Russia from developing or deploying nuclear or conventional missile systems with a range between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. The launcher has remained in the Philippines since the exercise. Beijing has denounced the initial deployment and its expansion as provocative and destabilizing. Colonel Francel Margareth Padilla, a spokesperson for the Armed Forces of the Philippines, said the military was continuing to train with the launchers, including practicing their mobility, as Manila seeks to acquire the systems. The comments came after Beijing criticized Manila over its defense modernization and efforts to protect its maritime rights. The Philippines, the oldest US military ally in Asia, has revived defense cooperation with Washington since President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. took office in 2022, but the moves have earned Manila Beijing's ire. On Friday, China summoned the Philippine ambassador to protest after Marcos signed two domestic laws to define Manila's sovereign rights in maritime zones and sea lanes, as defined by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Beijing is protesting what it calls its illegal annexation of reefs, islands and waters it claims, China's foreign ministry said. The procurement of the MRC missile launchers would be part of Marcos's efforts to enable the Philippine Armed Forces to detect and deter threats, as he shifted the country's focus from fighting a long-running internal rebellion to protecting its sovereignty. The modernization effort, backed by a tripling of the military budget, includes plans for several new naval and air bases. As an American product, there is always a premium that results in a higher price tag. No figures are publicly available, although it is assumed that the Philippines can afford them if the proposed shopping list in the Re-Horizon 3 phase of the revised AFP modernization program is anything to go by. The SM-6 missiles are said to cost $4.9 million each, while the Tomahawk cruise missiles are said to cost the same. Meanwhile, there are cheaper alternatives from other countries, who could potentially export their systems, albeit with modifications to meet requirements under the Missile Technology Control Regime. These include India, South Korea, and possibly Israel and Turkey. Will the US government allow the export of Typhoon MRC, as well as SM-6 missiles and especially Tomahawk cruise missiles to the Philippines? Because currently there are only two countries that operate Tomahawk cruise missiles, the United States and the United Kingdom. So far, approvals have been made to export the missiles to Australia, Japan, and the Netherlands. However, the use of these missiles is very limited. Meanwhile, SM-6 missiles are only operated by the United States, and on Japanese and Australian warships. The number of users is also very limited due to strict control over the missiles. Although the Philippines is considered an important non-NATO major ally of the United States, it is difficult to say whether the US government will approve the export of these missiles to the Philippines. Here's some good news though. The Armed Forces of the Philippines confirmed that due to continued presence of the US Army's Typhoon MRC missile system in the Philippines, it has allowed the Philippine Army to train with the launcher, including practicing its mobility. Also, the AFP was more direct in their pronouncement, with AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Brawner, and later on AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margareth Padilla being more specific on their aim to acquire the Typhoon MRC missile system in the future. So in reality, this appears to be a political decision to be made by both Manila and Washington, banking on the bipartisan support by both Republicans and Democrats on the Philippines' position and importance in the Indo-Pacific region's security. It also helps that the US, incoming President Donald Trump is pushing its allies to do more for their own defense, including likely allowing allies more access to American military weapon sales, as well as incoming Secretary of State Senator Marco Rubio, who is a very strong supporter of the Philippines and is among those pushing for providing a larger military aid for its ally. Typhoon would complement BrahMos supersonic anti-ship missiles that Manila procured from India, Teodoro said. It adds depth and it increases deterrence, he said. The MRC system is suitable for missiles exceeding the 200 km to 300 km range of the BrahMos. The Philippine military is building its first BrahMos base on the west coast of Luzon, facing the disputed South China Sea. It is also looking to reinforce other areas including the east coast, facing waters and airspace that are key for US submarines and supply lines and where China is increasing its military activity. The country of more than 7,000 islands is at a strategic intersection of shipping lanes that connect East Asia with Australia, Southeast Asia and India. Some of the fiercest battles of the Second World War were fought in the straits and bays of the archipelago. The points for forward operating bases would generally be where our archipelagic baselines are, Teodoro said, referring to the outer lines of the country's territorial sea. I do believe that we need to put in a lot of infrastructure in the eastern seaboard, for air and naval basing.